The Immaterium, also known as the Warp, the Sea of Souls, or the Realm of Chaos, is a nightmarish, alternate dimension of pure psychic energy. It's not so much as a place, as it is a formless ocean of raw emotion and thought, almost like a dark, twisted mirror of our material reality. At its core, the Warp exists because sentient life exists. Every thought, dream, feeling, or emotion has a ripple effect on the Warp. It is a feedback loop. Sentient life creates psychic energy that swirls into the Warp, and the Warp swirls back into reality. This is why it's often described as chaotic. It doesn't adhere to the usual rules of time, space, or logic. Instead, it operates on something akin to dream logic, where concepts like direction, distance, or gravity are irrelevant. What's so terrifying about the Warp is how unnatural it feels. It defies reason and operates on emotional logic. Without a Gellar Field, the shield that protects a voidship and its crew, traveling through the Warp would be fatal. The ship would be overwhelmed by the psychic maelstrom, torn apart by its currents, or worse, infested by demons. In essence, the Warp is a realm of raw psychic energy shaped by the collective thoughts, emotions, and nightmares of every living being in the galaxy. It doesn't obey physical laws, and navigating it is less like piloting a ship and more like trying to sail through a sentient ocean of madness, filled with storms that hate you, currents that can drag you into hell, and predators that want to eat your soul. But it always wasn't like this. It was a calm realm until the events of the war in heaven between the Necrons and the Old Ones happened millions of years ago in the past, and it changed it for the worse. And then with the birth of Tzeentch and the non-stop wars of 40k, the Sea of Souls became the realm of chaos. Now getting to the first locations here in our explanation of the different realms or regions of the Immaterium, we have first the warp storms and the warp rifts. These aren't so much of dedicated realms, but merely as temporary locations that mixes and blurs the borders between real space and the Sea of Souls. Reality in or near these warp rifts are different in nature to the true Immaterium, and also different to real space. We included them here since the most visible evidence of the warp to the races of the galaxy was the Eye of Terror, and it had been in existence since the birth of Tzeentch. Yet it is a region of both space-time and the Empyrean jumbled up together. Here space and emotions are mixed together where no one chaos god really has control over. The Cicatrix Maledictum, or also known as the Great Rift, then emerged from this Eye of Terror after the destruction of the planet of Cadia during Abaddon's 13th Crusade. Now this mixing up of real space and warp space has expanded and divided the galaxy into two parts. Its emergence was a literal galaxy-shattering event. So vast and powerful was this that it tore at the fabric of reality, causing the very laws of physics to unravel at its edges. Temporal fluctuations, once confined primarily to massive warp storms like the Eye of Terror, now has spread across the galaxy. So beneath this lies the true Immaterium, the Sea of Souls, and for most part of it lies the Land of Lost Souls, the majority of warp space, which is also known as the Formless Ways. The Formless Ways, also called the Chaotic Abyss or the Land of Lost Souls, are those eerie, ever-shifting parts of the warp that don't belong to any of the major chaos gods. Picture a realm where the laws of physics don't really matter. The landscape here is madness given form. Rivers of thick black tar wind through petrified forests under blood-red skies. Endless stairways rise into the heavens only to loop back on themselves. Castles are made of bone and fortresses dripping with ichor stand as twisted monuments. But the Formless Ways aren't entirely chaotic. The strongest greater demons and the demon princes have carved out pockets of stability, shaping small islands of reality within the turmoil. These places are like personal domains, often containing shrines or temples reflecting their creators' twisted desires. It is also whispered that the minor chaos gods, those shadowy lesser-known entities, set up their own small realms within these Formless Ways. Somewhere deep within this ever-changing madness lies the infamous Forge of Souls, a place where Vashtor the Archifane reigns supreme and plans his ultimate ascension as the fifth chaos god. It is here in this region that most non-chaos aligned warp entities can also be found, like the Warp Furies or also the Enslavers. The first realm of a chaos god here is that of Khorne. His region in the Warp is known as the realm of brass and blood. See, the thing about the chaos gods is that they are manifestations of the type of emotion spilled into the Warp by the living beings of real space. They are ever existing in the Immaterium, but to varying degrees. They are part and parcel of the Warp itself. Yet there are particular regions, if it can be physically stated, that are predominantly under their influence. The Blood God's domain is where the embodiment of Khorne exists atop his skull throne, while at the same time, his demons and his region is also him in a way. Khorne's domain, the Blood God's realm, is a nightmarish expanse of violence and destruction, where war is eternal and despair never ceases. Vast blood-soaked plains stretch endlessly, with volcanic mountains, rivers of boiling blood, and relentless storms of pure rage. Rival bloodthirsters wage endless wars across this hellscape, their territories divided by rivers of gore that flow into the lake of slaughter, a vast, impossibly large sea of blood teeming with unholy creatures. At its far shores lies a field of skulls so vast that no ground beneath can be seen. This endless plain leads to the towering brass citadel, Khorne's fortress. Here within its blackened walls, and past the bastion stairs and the 8 iron pillars, the blood god Khorne sits atop the throne of skulls. So we have covered the warp storms, the formless ways, and the blood god's domain, and now we come to the land of the plague lord. Nurgle, the great lord of decay and master of plague and pestilence, is a god who embodies the inevitable truth. Everything, no matter how strong or enduring it may seem, will eventually rot, crumble, or fade away and die. In the realm of chaos, Nurgle's home, often called the Garden of Nurgle, reflects his twisted view of creation and decay. But don't let the name fool you. This is no garden in the mortal sense. It is a grotesque, surreal landscape that defies logic, filled with a strange and festering version of life. Imagine fields of bloated, rotting plants, swollen fruits that decay even as they grow, and twisted trees made of bone, all crawling with swarms of nurglings and other ghastly creatures. Like a real garden, everything in Nurgle's realm is interconnected, each foul part feeding into the next in a cycle of vibrant decay. The garden is also a place of constant change. Paths don't lead where you think they will, and time seems irrelevant. You don't just walk through Nurgle's realm, you experience it. The garden molds itself into the whims of its master. At the heart of this endless garden lies Nurgle's house of decay, a massive, crumbling structure groaning under the weight of its own decay. Though the Garden of Nurgle seems eternal, it hasn't been completely untouched. It's so vast that it's nearly infinite, yet it has been burned, twice in fact, by Rebooty Gilliman and then by Caldo Drago, who both managed to scar this festering paradise. The fifth region here is the realm of the Sorcerer. Tzeentch, the Changer of Ways, goes by countless other titles across the galaxy, and fittingly, his realm within the Warp is as strange and ever-changing as the god himself. Describing it is like trying to paint with mist or sculpting with fog, an impossible task because it shifts and evolves even as you try to comprehend it. The Warp itself is a sea of madness, a swirling chaos of insanity, and Tzeentch's domain is like that chaos distilled and magnified into its purest, most surreal form. At its heart lies a place called the Crystal Labyrinth, an endless maze sprawled across a shimmering plateau that glows like a mottled opal. Its pathways are alive with their madness. Walls appear and then vanish, passages split or merge, directions twist on themselves, and the whole thing seems to mock any concept of logic. Only the Lords of Change, the greater demons of Tzeentch, have the faintest chance of understanding the maze's purpose or navigating its shifting corridors. Time, which already behaves erratically in the Warp, becomes even stranger, more warped and inconsistent in Tzeentch's realm. At the heart of this chaotic nightmare, if a term like heart can even be made sense here, lies the Impossible Fortress. Supposedly this thing here sits at the center of the Crystal Labyrinth, but such geographical ideas are meaningless in a place that defies all logic. Then we come to the last Chaos God's domain, the Dark Prince's realm. So Slaanesh, the Lord of Pleasure, also known as the Dark Prince, rules over a realm of twisted temptation and decadent excess. His domain is a trap for those who seek pleasure or power, drawing them deeper into an endless spiral of indulgence until they are lost forever. The realm is made up of 6 concentric circles, with the Palace of Pleasure at the center. The circles aren't just places, they are temptations made real, designed to break the strongest of wills. The journey begins with the Circle of Avidity, where greed takes hold with riches and treasures beyond imagination. Next comes the Circle of Gluttony, filled with lavish feasts and overflowing wine. The third, the Circle of Carnality, plays upon the heart's deepest, most perfect desires. Then comes the Circle of Paramountcy, which offers absolute power and adoration from countless followers. Then comes the Circle of Vainglory, where the traveler is shown their perfect form, but this is just a prison of pride. The final circle appears to be a perfect paradise, a place of bliss, that resting for even a moment here leads to eternal slumber and death in pleasure-filled idleness. And then at the center is the Palace of Pleasure itself, and Slaanesh himself lays there, and anyone that reaches it becomes a slave to his every whim for all of eternity. Then comes the Great Green. This here is the most ignored part of the realm of chaos. As much as sentient minds of the galaxy create the Immaterium with their thoughts and emotions, so too do orcs, which are the most numerous species in existence, create a place for their afterlife. The Great Green is a fascinating, bizarre, and very orky concept. It is the spiritual realm of the orcoid species, a place that exists beyond the material universe, where their gods, Gork and Mork, reside and battle each other for eternity. Now, if you know anything about orcs, this place isn't gonna be some serene or quiet spiritual paradise. No! The Great Green is a realm where everything is big, brutal, and green, because, of course, it is, why not? It's a place of eternal fighting, smashing, and laughter, a place of forever Krompen, a realm that perfectly mirrors the orcs' boisterous and warlike nature. If you were a hulking knob or a boy when you died, you'll get popped back into the same kind of orc body the next time around in this paradise. If it were a Gretchen or a Snotling, well, tough luck, you'll end up as a new Gretchen or a Snotling. It's the orky version of reincarnation, eternal wah, with no end in sight. So now we come to the Deep Warp. Now this is almost strictly fan theories. Well, I say almost cause there is a mention of it in the books, which I will read in a minute or so. The Deep Warp represents the notion of the existence of deeper layers to the Immaterium. These are areas or regions where absolutely no information comes out of. As much as what lies beyond the event horizon of a black hole is completely out of the scope of observation, so too does the same apply to the concept of the Deep Warp. So the following is a set of compiled statements about the depths of the Immaterium taken from a book called Path of Heaven by Chris Reid.
There are layers, yes. There is stratum aetheris, the shallow ways. There is stratum profundus, the greater arteries, plunging deeper. There is stratum obscurus, the root of the terror. How does this help you? No living man can navigate the deep ways. Even he could not. The seat is an ocean. All know this. It has currents. It has depths. It has storms. Near the surface, you can see the cartomancer's light. You can follow it. You can use your Gellar Aegis, and you are kept barred from the intelligences. But even then, you are just below the upper limits. Go deeper, and the Aegis shatters. The lights go out. The eye is blinded. When men say that they traverse the warp, they boast, for no mortal does more than skim across eternity's face, like stones thrown by a child.
So, I don't know if Games Workshop would in the future elaborate more on this one, but then again I'll still be happy with a little bit of dark mystery as to the possibility of the existence of deeper layers to the Immaterium. And so now we come to the Well of Eternity. So deep within the ever-shifting crystal labyrinth of Tzeentch lies the impossible fortress, a structure that defies all understanding. This fortress isn't just some twisted citadel. It is a paradox given form, and inside its shifting walls, at the very heart of this madness, lies something even more incomprehensible. The Well of Eternity, where even Tzeentch fears to step in. The Well of Eternity isn't just a place, it's also an idea, a concept so vast and alien that mortal minds can't begin to grasp it. Imagine a point where all of time and space converge, where the flow of reality begins, ends, and folds in on itself. It sits at the absolute center of everything, at a fixed point in the ever-chaotic warp, where the laws of existence unravel completely. Past, present, and future don't mean anything here. They simply are, all at once, always, and never. To try and understand it, Tzeentch sent his most powerful and trusted Lord of Change called Kairos Fate Weaver into it, and when the demon emerged out of it, it was no longer the same. Kairos had been forever changed by the event. And so to say that the Well of Eternity is inside of Tzeentch's realm is partly untrue, cause Tzeentch dares not to enter it. And finally, we have the labyrinthine webway. We end here with the webway. This is basically a vast extra-dimensional network that stretches across the galaxy to unknown points, innumerable points, through the Immaterium. As much as a tunnel beneath a mountain can be considered to be a part of the mountain topography, so can the same be said about the webway, which are like tunnels piercing through the warp. Millions of years ago, an ancient and unbelievably advanced alien race, simply known to us as the Old Ones, created the webway, carving out this place from the warp as a safe alternative to travel. The Eldari were then taught about the webway by the Old Ones and became its masters after the death of their creators. However, when the Eldari Empire collapsed in a disaster caused by their own decadence and the birth of Slaanesh, the fourth Chaos God, the webway itself suffered severe damage. The fall sent waves of corrupting energy rippling through the webway, shattering its parts and rupturing its stability. Despite its damaged state, the webway is still an incredible tool for those who know how to use it. In it also lies the city of Gomorrah, which is inhabited by the Dark Eldar. Gomorrah's dimensions would be considered impossibly large for its size, its population greater than that of a whole star system. It is more like a vast collection of satellite realms and cities, and all of this, including its darkest regions, where the mandrakes reside, are all part of the webway, which in turn can be considered a separate region, separated from the warp but still existing between the currents of the Immaterium. So that is what we understand, what we can make of the entirety of the warp, the realms of the Sea of Souls. So in a nutshell, it's the warp storms and warp rifts, the formless ways, the blood god's domain, the land of the plague lord, the realm of the sorcerer, the dark prince's realm, the great green, the deep warp, the well of eternity, and the labyrinthine webway. So, if you like this video, then watch this other one too. And if you want to browse for other sci-fi and Warhammer content, then check out our channel. So subscribe and like for support. Till the next time, take care, boys.